No one believed a human could lead, except the alien princess. Born on a small blue world called Earth, he had always imagined adventure in books or in simulations, never in real life among alien worlds and beings whose forms were more wondrous than he could have ever imagined. Yet here he was, stepping off the sleek shuttle onto the luminous surface of Silthara, a planet bathed in shimmering light, its sky a soft gradient of violet and gold. The air hummed with energy, and the faint aroma of alien flora was both sweet and sharp, unlike anything he had experienced before. The council hall towered before him, a structure of crystal and metal that seemed alive. Light bent around it, casting intricate patterns on the ground. This was the place where the leaders of hundreds of worlds had gathered, a neutral space for discussion, diplomacy, and, if needed, conflict resolution. But Elias had no interest in fighting. He wanted to observe, to understand, and to see where humanity might fit among these advanced civilizations. As he stepped inside, he noticed the alien delegates moving gracefully, their forms strange yet elegant. Some floated, some glided, and others walked with multiple limbs that seemed to flow like ribbons. Their eyes were larger than his, their skin reflected light in patterns he could barely comprehend, and their voices carried tones and pitches that created music unintentionally. Despite this, they all watched him, a human, simple, unremarkable compared to the array of beings surrounding him, and yet Elias did not shrink. He held his head high, his eyes curious, his posture calm. The room was filled with murmurs. A human. Here, one delegate whispered, his skin glinting like liquid silver. Why would Earth send a human to this council? Perhaps it is a mistake, another said, wings fluttering nervously. They have no experience in our affairs. Elias ignored the whispers, focusing instead on the figure standing near the center of the hall. She radiated authority without arrogance, her presence commanding attention effortlessly. The alien princess Liara moved with poise, her luminous hair floating like tendrils in the light, and her eyes, deep pools of violet, examined Elias with curiosity but not judgment. Unlike the others, she did not murmur or glance away. She seemed to see him, truly see him, in a way that few could. The council session began with ceremonial greetings, a series of gestures and sounds that Elias struggled to understand but followed with respect. Delegates spoke of trade, exploration, and the fragile balance of resources across their worlds. Every now and then, someone would glance at him skeptically, as if expecting him to falter or make a mistake. Elias kept silent, listening carefully, studying the dynamics, learning the patterns of behavior. Then came the first challenge. A disagreement had erupted over a newly discovered star system rich in resources essential for sustaining multiple worlds. Some species claimed prior rights due to proximity, while others argued that the system should belong to the Alliance collectively. Voices rose, and the debate threatened to spiral into chaos. Aliens gestured wildly, their words layering into a complex web of accusations and demands. Elias observed quietly, noticing patterns that no one else seemed to recognize. Many leaders spoke from pride or fear, reacting emotionally rather than logically. He saw the gaps in their reasoning, the missed opportunities for compromise, and the points where logic could guide diplomacy. He waited for the right moment. Liara's gaze found him. There was no impatience, only the recognition of potential. She leaned slightly, her attention signaling that she trusted him to contribute, even when others would dismiss him. That simple acknowledgement emboldened Elias. When he spoke, his voice was calm, measured, and clear. "We can ensure fairness for all parties," he said, "if we approach this with a plan that allows each species to benefit without taking from the others. There is no need for conflict when solutions exist that honor both proximity and collective need." A hush fell over the room. Delegates exchanged confused glances. They had expected boldness, aggression, or at least appeals to tradition. Instead, a human offered reason, not dominance, a suggestion that no one had considered. Liara's eyes sparkled with approval. "Explain," she said, her tone encouraging. Elias outlined his idea. Each planet in the system would be assigned management rights over specific resources, not based on proximity alone, but on expertise and willingness to collaborate. A council of representatives from each species would oversee operations, ensuring transparency and mutual benefit. He emphasized communication, shared responsibility, and contingency plans in case of errors or disputes. The delegates listened, some with skepticism, others with intrigue. One of the older leaders, a being whose body shimmered with 1,000 colors, spoke first. "And why should we trust a human? You are untested in such matters." Elias smiled faintly, acknowledging the challenge without defensiveness. "I do not ask for blind trust, I ask for observation. Let the results speak for themselves. If my plan fails, then it fails. But if we work together, the benefits will be clear to all." Liara nodded. "I support this approach," she said, her voice carrying authority that silenced murmurs. "We will implement a trial phase. Let us see how this human's method works in practice." The decision was met with mixed reactions. Some delegates were resistant, clinging to their traditions and pride. Others were curious, willing to give the idea a chance. Elias felt a surge of cautious hope. The first step was always the hardest, but he had made it. He had been seen, truly seen, by someone who mattered. In the days that followed, Elias worked alongside Liara and the council to begin the trial implementation. He met with specialists from various worlds, learning their methods, understanding their technologies, and finding ways to connect their knowledge. His human adaptability proved an asset. He could learn quickly, ask questions without ego, and find solutions where others saw only problems. Liara often stayed close during these sessions, not to lead him, but to observe and provide support. She marveled at how Elias communicated across species with respect and clarity. Where others relied on force or authority, he relied on understanding and collaboration. It was a style of leadership that had rarely been seen in the galaxy, one that challenged assumptions and sparked curiosity. Despite the progress, resistance remained. Some leaders whispered behind closed doors, questioning why a human was allowed to influence decisions. Rumors circulated that Elias was a mere figurehead, that the alliance would fail under his guidance. Yet, Elias did not waver. He understood that earning respect required more than words. It required action, consistency, and patience. One evening, Liara approached him as he reviewed the day's reports. The hall was quiet, the light dimming into shades of pink and silver. "You carry yourself with confidence, yet you are not proud," she said softly. "That is rare among leaders, even among our kind." Elias looked up, a small smile forming. "I am not sure I feel like a leader," he admitted. "I only want to help, to see what we can accomplish if we work together." Liara's eyes softened. Sometimes, true leadership is not about claiming power, but about inspiring others to see possibilities they cannot see themselves. That is exactly what you are doing. The words warmed him. For the first time in his life, Elias felt that his small, unassuming nature, the very thing others had overlooked, was exactly what made him suited for this role. He had not arrived here to dominate or impress. He had arrived to observe, to understand, and to guide with clarity and heart. In the following weeks, the project began to take shape. Delegates who had doubted him found themselves seeking his advice, noticing how his simple, logical approach resolved disputes and fostered cooperation. Liara's trust became a beacon, signaling to others that a human could indeed contribute meaningfully. Elias' presence also sparked subtle changes. Species who had never worked together began to share insights freely, inspired by his calm encouragement. Barriers of pride and fear began to fall, replaced by curiosity and collaboration. He witnessed how humanity's willingness to adapt, to empathize, and to learn from others was a strength that even advanced civilizations admired. One day, during a council meeting focused on finalizing resource allocation, tensions flared. A disagreement erupted between two powerful species, threatening to derail the progress entirely. Delegates shouted, their gestures flaring in complex patterns, their voices rising in frustration. Elias stood, calm and composed, and raised his hand slightly. The room grew quiet. "We are here to find solutions, not to assert dominance," he said. "If we listen to each other and focus on shared goals rather than individual pride, we can find a path that benefits everyone." The words were simple, but their effect was profound. Liara smiled as the room slowly adjusted, attention turning toward Elias' approach. He guided the discussion, balancing concerns and offering compromises that respected all parties. By the end of the session, an agreement was reached that no one had thought possible at the start. Liara's eyes met his across the room, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. She knew then, as she had suspected from the beginning, that this human, so quiet, so unassuming, was extraordinary. He had not come to conquer but to unite. He had not sought glory but understanding. And in doing so, he had begun to earn the respect of an entire galaxy. Elias returned to his quarters that evening, tired but hopeful. The journey ahead would be long and filled with challenges, but he had taken the first step. For the first time, humanity had a chance to prove itself on a cosmic stage, not through force, but through wisdom, collaboration, and heart. As he gazed out at the stars from the towering balcony, he felt a quiet determination settle within him. The galaxy was vast, full of unknowns and wonders, but he was ready. With Liara's trust and the potential of humanity behind him, he would show that leadership was not about species or experience. It was about vision, integrity, and the courage to act when it mattered most. And somewhere in the luminous corridors of Silthara, the alien princess smiled, knowing that she had seen the first spark of something extraordinary. Humanity had arrived, not as a shadow among giants, but as a light capable of illuminating the path forward. The weeks following the initial council meeting passed in a mixture of anticipation and tension. Elias found himself constantly surrounded by alien minds, each with unique logic, culture, and perspective. What could have been overwhelming became a thrilling challenge. Every conversation, every debate, offered him an opportunity to understand not just the problem but the beings themselves. He observed that the more he listened, the more solutions emerged, often in places no one expected. Liara remained at his side, a quiet pillar of support. She did not guide him in decisions. She only offered subtle suggestions or encouragement when it was needed. Her presence reassured Elias that he was not alone in this new and alien environment. The other delegates, though still wary, began to notice how effectively the two worked together. There was a synergy in their communication, a mutual respect that transcended species differences. The next challenge arrived in the form of the Interstellar Communication Project, a plan Elias had proposed during the first council meeting. The goal was ambitious: to build a massive network of communication beacons that could transmit across entire star systems, allowing species to share knowledge, resources, and culture without the delays or distortions common in interstellar travel. It was a project designed to unite rather than conquer, to foster collaboration rather than competition. At first, the other leaders doubted it would work. They questioned the feasibility, the technology, and even the need for such a system. Many saw it as a distraction from more immediate concerns, and some quietly grumbled that a human had the audacity to propose such an ambitious undertaking. But Liara's support was unwavering, and her influence lent credibility to the project. Elias began by assembling a team of specialists from multiple worlds. Each species had its own methods, materials, and logic. Some approached problems mathematically, others through intuition, while a few relied on ritualistic or tradition-based practices. Elias quickly realized that the biggest challenge was not technical but social. If he could harmonize these different approaches, the project might succeed. If not, it could fail spectacularly. He organized meetings that were both structured and flexible. He allowed delegates to speak freely, encouraged collaboration, and carefully mediated disputes. At first, progress was slow. Misunderstandings were frequent, and cultural differences caused tension. One species insisted that their methods were superior and refused to compromise, while another demanded total control over key components of the system. Elias handled these challenges with patience. He never dismissed anyone's ideas outright. Instead, he asked questions, highlighted strengths, and pointed out where multiple approaches could be combined. He had a way of reframing conflict as opportunity, showing that collaboration could yield better results than competition. Slowly, the walls of skepticism began to crumble. Liara often observed from the side, noting how Elias' calm presence and thoughtful words influenced the room. She had seen great leaders before, but none had approached the problem the way this human did. He did not rely on authority, intimidation, or tradition. He relied on understanding. It was a leadership style that was both unusual and effective, drawing out the best in others rather than imposing control. As the weeks turned into months, the team made measurable progress. The beacons began to take shape, a combination of alien technology and human ingenuity. Elias suggested integrating redundant systems to prevent failure, a concept that some species initially resisted, believing it unnecessary. Yet when minor malfunctions occurred, his foresight proved invaluable. The team began to trust him not only as a planner but as a problem solver. Even with this growing success, resistance lingered. Some council members continued to whisper doubts, claiming that humans were too limited to handle interstellar leadership. Elias ignored them, focusing instead on tangible progress. Liara noticed how he never allowed negativity to slow him down. Instead, he treated every setback as a learning opportunity, demonstrating resilience that inspired even the most skeptical delegates. One particular challenge tested both Elias' patience and his leadership. A sudden cosmic storm disrupted the transmission systems of the beacons under construction, causing data loss and creating confusion among the teams. Panic began to spread as delegates argued over blame and responsibility. Elias took a deep breath and stepped forward. "We cannot change the storm," he said calmly, "but we can respond to it together. Each of us brings knowledge that the others do not. If we share that knowledge and act in coordination, we can restore the system faster than any of us could alone." He then divided the team into smaller groups, pairing species who had never collaborated before, encouraging them to share techniques and ideas. He moved among them, listening, advising, and occasionally demonstrating a solution from a human perspective. Slowly, the groups adapted, communicating in ways they had not before. By the time the storm passed, the system was not only restored but optimized, incorporating improvements that had not existed before the crisis. The success of the recovery earned Elias quiet respect from even the harshest critics. The incident demonstrated what humans could achieve when curiosity, adaptability, and collaboration were combined. Liara's eyes shone with pride as she watched him handle the situation with humility and intelligence. Beyond the technical challenges, Elias also focused on the human aspects of leadership. He noticed that many delegates were homesick or stressed, navigating unfamiliar environments and languages. He made time to talk with them individually, learning about their cultures, listening to their concerns, and offering comfort where he could. His empathy created bonds that transcended species, forming a sense of camaraderie that strengthened the project's foundation. Liara observed these moments with quiet admiration. Leadership was often measured in achievements or decisions, but Elia's ability to connect with others, to understand and respect them, revealed a deeper kind of strength. It was not the kind of power that demanded obedience. It was the kind of influence that drew others willingly toward shared goals. As the communication network neared completion, another unexpected challenge arose. A delegation from a remote system questioned whether the project was truly fair, claiming that their species would be marginalized. The council became tense, and some delegates whispered that the human was overreaching, trying to control matters beyond his understanding. Elias invited the delegation to a private discussion, listening carefully to their concerns. He acknowledged their fears and worked with them to adjust the network design to ensure equal participation and benefit. By treating the delegation with respect and validating their perspective, he turned potential conflict into collaboration. The other council members noticed, realizing that Elias' leadership was not about personal recognition, but about fairness and inclusion. With each challenge, Elia's reputation grew quietly but steadily. Delegates began to approach him for guidance, not because he demanded it, but because his solutions worked and his approach fostered trust. Liara continued to support him, offering subtle advice, but she allowed him to navigate the complexities on his own, confident that he had the ability to succeed. One day, after a particularly long meeting, Liara and Elias walked together through the luminescent gardens of Silthara. The plants glowed softly, responding to touch and sound, and the air was filled with the gentle hum of energy that seemed to connect the world itself. "You have a rare gift," Liara said, her voice gentle. "Not everyone can inspire cooperation among so many different beings. You listen when others would argue. You learn when others would impose. That is why they follow you, even when they do not fully trust you yet." Elias looked at her thoughtfully. "I do not feel like I am leading, I am just helping. I want to see what can happen when people or beings work together." Liara smiled. "That is what makes you extraordinary. True leadership is not about power or control. It is about creating possibilities. You have shown that humanity can do more than survive among the stars. It can guide, inspire, and unite." Her words resonated deeply with Elias. He realized that leadership was not about proving himself to others, but about bringing out the best in everyone around him. Humanity's potential was not in force or dominance, but in creativity, adaptability, and empathy. If he could demonstrate that, even to a few worlds at first, it could ripple across the galaxy. As the final stages of the communication network began, Elias faced the ultimate test of collaboration. A series of unexpected technical anomalies threatened to delay the project indefinitely. Delegates grew anxious, some suggesting that human judgment had limits and that more experienced alien leaders should take over. Elias calmly reviewed the situation, breaking the problem down into smaller parts. He encouraged the teams to experiment, combining their knowledge and inventing solutions together. He asked questions that led others to insights they had overlooked, guiding them without dictating. Gradually, the anomalies were resolved and the network reached full functionality. When the first successful transmission was completed, a message sent instantly across multiple star systems. The room erupted in quiet awe. Delegates turned to Elias, some nodding in respect, others offering smiles of genuine appreciation. Liara's eyes shone with pride, knowing that humanity had earned a remarkable place in the galaxy, not through conquest, but through ingenuity, patience, and heart. In the quiet moments afterward, as Elias reviewed the completed system, he felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything he had experienced. Not because he had proven the skeptics wrong, but because he had shown what could be achieved when beings worked together, respecting one another's strengths and differences. The success was not his alone. It belonged to everyone who had contributed, guided, and learned. Liara joined him once more, standing silently at his side. "You have done more than I imagined," she said softly. "They may have doubted you at first, but now they see what I always knew. Humanity is not limited by fear or prejudice. It thrives on curiosity, creativity, and empathy. You have reminded the galaxy of that truth." Elias looked out across the glowing landscape of Silthara, feeling a quiet determination settle within him. This was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with challenges, unknowns, and endless opportunities. Humanity's journey among the stars had just begun, and he was ready to lead, not with force, but with wisdom, kindness, and vision. For the first time, he truly understood what Liara had seen in him from the beginning. A human could guide, not because of strength or experience, but because of heart. And sometimes, heart was the most powerful force in the universe. The stars stretched endlessly above Silthara, and Elias felt a connection he had never imagined. He knew that challenges would continue, that doubts and obstacles would arise, but he also knew that humanity, with its curiosity, adaptability, and resilience, could meet them. And with allies like Liara and the support of those willing to listen, they could shape a future that was brighter than any one world, brighter than any single species. He took a deep breath, the alien air filling his lungs, and smiled. This was the moment when humanity began to shine among the stars, not as intruders, not as bystanders, but as contributors, leaders, and collaborators. And Elias, the unassuming human from Earth, was ready to show them how. With the communication network completed and functioning, the Council marveled at what had been achieved. Worlds separated by light years could now share knowledge instantly, cultural practices could be exchanged, and scientific discoveries could reach every corner of the galaxy in real time. Yet, Elias knew that the real test was only beginning. A system might work on paper, or even in controlled conditions, but it was when it was used in the real galaxy that its value would be truly proven. Liara remained a steady presence, observing quietly as Elias prepared for the next phase, demonstrating that cooperation among vastly different species could extend beyond a single project. She had seen his intelligence, his patience, and his empathy, but she knew the galaxy could be unpredictable. Not all species would willingly follow, even with proof of the network's success. The first challenge arose sooner than expected. A newly contacted planet, distant and isolated, expressed interest in joining the alliance. Their people were cautious, having never interacted with other civilizations, and they feared that any mistake could lead to exploitation. Delegates from older, more established worlds suggested limiting the newcomers' participation until they proved themselves. The room buzzed with debate, voices raised in concern, and some subtle accusations about their inexperience. Elias listened carefully. He understood that skepticism was natural, but he also recognized a bigger opportunity. "Exclusion breeds fear," he said calmly. "Inclusion fosters growth. If we allow them to contribute under guidance and support, they will strengthen the alliance instead of feeling marginalized. We cannot demand trust from others if we do not first offer it ourselves." Liara nodded silently, her eyes reflecting pride and hope. She had learned to trust Elias' judgment implicitly, even when it went against conventional wisdom. His human perspective, combining reason with empathy, was unusual, yet effective. Slowly, some delegates began to see the wisdom in his approach, and the decision was made to welcome the new planet into the network with mentorship from experienced members. The process of integration was delicate. Language differences, technological gaps, and cultural misunderstandings challenged every step. Yet Elias approached each problem with patience and curiosity. He asked questions to understand, rather than to judge, and he encouraged the newcomers to share their ideas freely. He paired them with allies from other worlds, creating teams that balanced experience with fresh perspective. As days turned into weeks, the integration began to show remarkable results. The newcomers contributed innovations that others had never considered, and their unique methods improved the network's efficiency. Their presence reminded the older civilizations that no matter how advanced, every species had room to learn and grow. Liara observed this quietly, her admiration deepening. She had seen many leaders in her lifetime, but Elia's approach was unique. He did not demand respect. He earned it through humility, intelligence, and unwavering patience. Even those who had doubted him at first began to rely on his guidance, not because they were forced to, but because they trusted his vision. Amid this progress, Elias faced another challenge, one that tested his ability to unite species under pressure. A neighboring system, rich in rare energy resources, had begun sending exploratory ships into disputed territories, unintentionally creating tension among alliance members. Some delegates called for immediate intervention, proposing strict control or restrictions. Others feared escalation, concerned that any misstep could ignite conflict. Elias gathered the council and spoke in measured tones. "We must approach this not as rivals but as partners. The system contains resources enough for all if we coordinate and share knowledge. By working together, we prevent misunderstanding and build trust. If we respond with restriction or force, we risk reinforcing fear instead of fostering cooperation." He proposed a joint expedition, a collaborative mission where representatives from each interested species would study the system, map resources, and design a management plan that was equitable and sustainable. The idea was radical. It required trust, patience, and collaboration in a situation where competition had always dominated. Many were skeptical, but Liara supported him openly, emphasizing the potential for long-term stability. The council reluctantly agreed, and Elias began organizing the mission. He assigned teams carefully, pairing species that historically had tensions, and encouraged open dialogue at every stage. He created communication protocols, not only for technical purposes but to ensure that all voices were heard and that decisions were reached collectively. The mission itself proved challenging. The system's energy fields were unpredictable, technology from different worlds was sometimes incompatible, and disagreements emerged frequently. Yet Elias' leadership shone. He did not dictate solutions. Instead, he asked questions that guided teams toward answers. He celebrated small successes, encouraged creative approaches, and reminded everyone of the shared goal. Slowly, the teams began to trust each other. Alien scientists who had never spoken with their counterparts from other worlds discovered that collaboration produced results far beyond what individual efforts could achieve. They learned to value different perspectives, recognizing that diversity was a source of strength rather than a complication. Liara observed these interactions with growing awe. Elias had created an environment where collaboration flourished not through authority, but through respect. Each challenge became an opportunity to demonstrate humanity's potential, not through force, but through understanding, adaptability, and guidance. During a particularly tense day, a technical anomaly threatened to halt the mission. Two species argued over the correct approach, and the debate escalated quickly. Elias stepped in, not to take control, but to facilitate understanding. He asked each side to explain their reasoning clearly, then encouraged them to find common ground. By highlighting shared goals rather than differences, he turned conflict into cooperation. The anomaly was resolved, and the teams celebrated their combined achievement. This moment was pivotal. It proved that a human could not only participate in leadership among advanced species, but could also inspire them to work together in ways they had never done before. Elias realized that this was the essence of his journey, bridging gaps, uniting disparate minds, and demonstrating that collaboration was more powerful than competition. As the expedition concluded successfully, the Council recognized the results. The joint mission had created a sustainable plan for resource management, reduced tensions, and strengthened trust across multiple worlds. Delegates who had once doubted Elias now approached him for guidance, acknowledging his insight and patience. Even the most skeptical leaders could not ignore the evidence. The human from Earth had achieved what many thought impossible. Liara stood beside him as the council discussed the next steps. "You have done more than I imagined," she said quietly. "Not only have you guided them to success, but you have also changed the way they see leadership and collaboration. They will carry these lessons forward, and humanity will be remembered not as outsiders, but as contributors and guides." Elias felt a quiet sense of pride, but not arrogance. He understood that leadership was not about recognition, but about enabling others to reach their potential. The real reward was the trust, the connections, and the shared achievements. He knew that there were still challenges ahead, but this success was proof that humanity's approach, curiosity, empathy, adaptability, was valuable on a galactic scale. In the weeks that followed, Elias continued to strengthen alliances, build networks, and mentor delegates. He encouraged knowledge sharing, fostered cultural exchanges, and created opportunities for collaboration that went beyond mere politics. His presence became a stabilizing influence, and his approach began to influence the broader culture of the Alliance. Liara often observed him during these moments, silently reflecting on the significance of what was happening. She had believed in him from the start, but now she saw the tangible impact of his leadership. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was no longer a quiet participant. It had become a force for unity, innovation, and understanding. One evening, after a particularly productive day, Liara and Elias walked together beneath Silthara's glowing skies. The alien flora shimmered with soft light, casting gentle reflections on the crystal pathways. "Do you realize what you have accomplished?" Liara asked. "You have shown that differences are not obstacles but opportunities. You have proven that collaboration can succeed even when doubt is strongest." Elias smiled softly. "I have learned from them as much as they have learned from me. Humanity has ideas and abilities, yes, but the greatest strength is seeing value in others, no matter how different they are. That is what makes this possible." Liara nodded. "And that is what makes you extraordinary. You lead not by asserting power, but by inspiring trust. That is something few leaders in the galaxy have ever achieved." The stars above seemed to shimmer in agreement, a silent witness to the growth of unity and understanding. Elias knew that the journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, unforeseen obstacles, and moments of doubt. Yet he also knew that the lessons of patience, empathy, and collaboration would guide them through any trial. As the Council prepared for the next phase of exploration and alliance building, Elias reflected on humanity's place in the galaxy. Humans were often underestimated, considered simple or inexperienced. Yet he had seen the potential for creativity, adaptability, and empathy to bridge divides, solve problems, and inspire trust. The galaxy was vast, but it was full of opportunities for those willing to listen, learn, and act with integrity. Liara's presence remained a constant reminder of the trust that had been placed in him. She had believed in humanity's potential before anyone else did, and her support had allowed him to demonstrate it. Together they had begun a transformation, not through force, but through wisdom, patience, and collaboration. Elias understood that true leadership was not about being in charge, but about enabling others to succeed. He had proven that humans could not only survive among the stars, but could guide, inspire, and unite. The Alliance had learned this lesson, and the galaxy would remember it. As he looked out across Silthara's glowing horizon, Elias felt a renewed determination. The future was uncertain but full of promise. Humanity had taken its first steps toward shaping that future, not as conquerors, but as collaborators, innovators, and leaders of character. And Elias, the human from a small blue world, would continue to show that even the most underestimated beings could achieve greatness when guided by heart and intelligence. The galaxy was vast, its mysteries endless, but for the first time, Elias felt that humanity had found its place, not just among the stars, but at the center of a movement that could unite civilizations, foster understanding, and create a brighter future for all. And as he turned to Liara, who stood silently beside him, he knew that their journey together was only beginning. Humanity had proven its value, but the greatest tests and the most remarkable triumphs still lay ahead. The success of the communication network and the collaborative expedition had changed the Council's perception of humanity. No longer were humans seen as curious outsiders, untested and inexperienced. They had proven themselves capable of understanding, bridging differences, and guiding diverse species toward shared goals. Yet Elias knew that recognition on paper or in private acknowledgement was not enough. True respect would only come when his approach, humanity's way, was fully understood and embraced by the galaxy. Liara, ever observant, had been preparing for the culmination of their work. The Council would convene soon to discuss the next stage of interstellar coordination, the formal establishment of a unified alliance that could act as a guiding force for countless civilizations. It was a historic opportunity, one that could solidify humanity's role as a respected participant, and perhaps as a leader. The day of the assembly arrived. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy gathered once more, their forms and appearances as varied as the stars themselves. There was a quiet tension in the air, a mix of anticipation and skepticism. Some wondered if humanity, despite all evidence of competence, was truly ready for a position of influence. Others were curious, perhaps even eager, to see how Elias would navigate the complexities of leadership at this scale. Elias entered the hall alongside Liara. The princess's presence lent him quiet authority, yet it was his calm demeanor, attentive eyes, and poised movements that drew attention. He had learned to carry himself with quiet confidence, a balance of humility and determination that made him approachable yet respected. The murmurs of doubt were still there, but fewer now, replaced with curiosity and cautious optimism. The first order of business was a review of the projects undertaken during the past months, the communication network, the resource-sharing expedition, and the integration of previously isolated civilizations. Delegates presented reports, shared insights, and highlighted successes and challenges. Elias listened intently, offering clarifying questions, suggestions for improvement, and acknowledgement of each contribution. His approach was simple but effective: show respect, foster collaboration, and guide the conversation toward constructive solutions. When it came time to discuss the future of the alliance, a debate arose. Some delegates argued that leadership should remain in the hands of established species with centuries of experience. Others suggested that a rotating council would ensure fairness. Voices rose, each making points grounded in tradition, pride, or caution. The room buzzed with uncertainty, and it seemed that consensus might be impossible. Elias stepped forward. His voice was calm but carried weight, not because of authority, but because of clarity and sincerity. "We have demonstrated that cooperation is possible," he said. "We have shown that understanding, respect, and collaboration can overcome differences that once seemed insurmountable. Leadership is not about species or tradition. It is about vision, integrity, and the ability to bring people together. The question we should ask ourselves is not who has the longest history, but who can guide us toward a future where all civilizations can thrive." The room fell silent. Delegates exchanged glances, and even those who had doubted him seemed to reconsider. Liara's eyes met his, offering quiet reassurance and support. She had believed in him from the beginning, and now the council had begun to see what she had always known. This human was capable of inspiring others to achieve more than they could alone. Elias continued, outlining a vision for the Alliance, a system where decisions would be made collectively, but guided by principles of fairness, inclusion, and collaboration. He proposed frameworks for communication, conflict resolution, and resource management, drawing on lessons learned from the previous projects. Every point was practical, backed by evidence, and framed in a way that respected the traditions of every species present. He also emphasized humanity's unique strengths: adaptability, creativity, and empathy. "We are not the most experienced," he admitted, "nor the strongest, but we can listen, learn, and inspire. That is how we can lead, not by imposing, but by helping others realize what is possible when we work together." For a moment, the council was silent, absorbing his words. The tension in the room eased as delegates began to nod, murmuring their agreement. One by one, representatives spoke, acknowledging the effectiveness of the collaborative projects and the wisdom demonstrated in their execution. Even the skeptics admitted that the humans' approach had created results beyond what tradition or authority could have achieved alone. Liara stepped forward, her voice carrying across the hall. "I have observed Elias throughout these projects. I have seen his patience, intelligence, and empathy. I have watched as he united species that once doubted each other, resolved disputes with understanding, and inspired creativity and cooperation. I stand by him because he has demonstrated what we all hope for in a leader: vision, integrity, and the ability to guide without force. I believe that humanity, through Elias, can help lead us into a future brighter than we have ever imagined." Her words echoed through the chamber, and the delegates fell silent once more. Many had been waiting for a voice of authority to validate Elias' efforts. Liara's support was not only personal but symbolic, an acknowledgement that the perspective of a human could hold weight on a galactic scale. The decision to formally recognize Elias as a guiding figure within the Alliance was not instantaneous, but it became inevitable. Through patient demonstration, problem-solving, and the consistent application of fairness, he had proven himself. Votes were cast, discussions held, and ultimately the Council reached a consensus. Elias would serve as a coordinator and representative, a role that allowed him to guide without dominance, to inspire rather than command. The recognition was historic. Across the galaxy, species celebrated the beginning of a new era, one in which leadership was measured not by conquest or tradition, but by vision, collaboration, and integrity. Humans were no longer outsiders, they were trusted partners, their potential acknowledged and respected. Elias felt a quiet pride, tempered by humility. He had not sought power or recognition, only understanding and the opportunity to contribute. The success belonged not to him alone, but to every being who had participated, collaborated, and believed in the possibility of a united galaxy. Even after the formal recognition, challenges continued. Delegates still had differences, unexpected technical issues arose, and the vastness of space offered unpredictable obstacles. Yet Elias approached each challenge with the same principles: listen carefully, encourage collaboration, and seek solutions that respect all parties. Each success reinforced the lessons learned, that unity was stronger than division, and understanding stronger than fear. Liara remained at his side throughout these times, not as a guide, but as a partner. She observed, advised subtly, and provided reassurance when doubt crept in. Together, they became a symbol of what was possible when trust and respect were prioritized over prejudice and skepticism. Over time, the alliance flourished. Knowledge was shared freely, cultural practices spread across systems, and scientific discoveries accelerated. Planets that had once been isolated or skeptical now contributed actively, offering insights that benefited all. Conflicts that might have escalated into tension were resolved through communication and mutual understanding. The galaxy, once fragmented by distance, mistrust, and competition, began to feel like a connected community. Through it all, Elias never lost sight of his humanity. He celebrated small victories, encouraged creativity, and acknowledged the contributions of every species. He led not by asserting authority, but by fostering trust, showing that intelligence and compassion could shape the future more effectively than dominance or intimidation. One evening, after a long day of council discussions, Elias and Liara stood on a terrace overlooking Silthara's luminous landscape. The air shimmered with alien light, and the distant stars glowed like scattered diamonds across a velvet sky. "Do you realize what you have accomplished?" Liara asked softly. "You have shown the galaxy that leadership is not about strength or history. It is about vision, empathy, and collaboration. You have changed how countless civilizations view humanity." Elias smiled quietly, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "I have only guided what already existed," he said. "The potential was always there. I simply helped others see it, including myself." Humanity's strength is not in being the loudest or the strongest, but in learning, adapting, and connecting. That is how we can contribute meaningfully. Liara nodded. "And that is why you succeeded where others might have failed. You understand that true influence comes from respect and understanding, not fear or force. You have reminded the galaxy that even the smallest or least expected participants can create meaningful change." Elias looked out at the stars, feeling the weight and wonder of possibility. The galaxy was vast, filled with challenges, unknowns, and opportunities. But he knew that humanity had taken its place among the stars, not as conquerors, not as spectators, but as collaborators, innovators, and guides. The work was not finished, but the foundation had been laid for a future defined by cooperation, creativity, and shared vision. As the assembly concluded, delegates approached Elias one by one, offering thanks, sharing insights, or simply acknowledging his contribution. He responded with humility, recognizing that their respect was earned through action, not demanded. Each interaction reinforced the principle that had guided him from the beginning, that listening, learning, and fostering trust were the greatest tools a leader could possess. Liara watched the interactions with quiet pride. She had known from the start that Elias possessed the qualities to inspire and unite. She had seen his intelligence, his patience, and his empathy in action, and now the galaxy recognized them too. Humanity's place among the stars was no longer uncertain. It was secure, built not on force or fear, but on integrity, vision, and collaboration. In the quiet moments after the assembly, Elias reflected on how far they had come. The galaxy was still vast, still full of mysteries and challenges, but humanity had proven its potential. The alliances formed, the trust built, and the successes achieved demonstrated that even beings from a small blue world could make a profound difference. He knew that the journey was ongoing. There would be new challenges, new civilizations to connect, and unexpected events to navigate. Yet he felt confident, not in his own power but in the strength of humanity's principles: curiosity, adaptability, empathy, and collaboration. These qualities had brought him this far, and they would continue to guide him and others as the galaxy moved forward. As night fell over Silthara, the stars shone brightly, reflecting on the crystalline landscapes and shimmering waters. Elias stood beside Liara, both gazing upward. He felt a deep sense of connection, not only to the worlds around him but to the potential of humanity itself. The future was not defined by fear or competition, but by the ability to learn, unite, and create together. In that moment, Elias understood what it meant to lead, not to command but to inspire, not to dominate but to guide, not to seek glory but to enable greatness in others. Humanity had arrived on the cosmic stage, and through understanding, wisdom, and heart, it would shape the galaxy in ways that honored its potential. Liara placed a hand on his shoulder, her smile reflecting both pride and hope. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "The galaxy will watch, learn, and grow alongside humanity, and it will remember that sometimes the most unexpected leaders can change everything." Elias nodded, feeling the weight and the promise of those words. Together, with the support of those willing to listen and the wisdom gained from every challenge, he knew they could face whatever lay ahead. Humanity's journey among the stars had begun in earnest, guided by curiosity, empathy, and vision, and the future shone as brightly as the stars themselves. And so, in a galaxy once divided by distance, doubt, and uncertainty, a human from a small blue world had proven that leadership was not about who you were, but what you could inspire others to achieve. With patience, understanding, and heart, humanity had taken its place, not as observers, but as creators of possibility, uniting worlds in a vision of cooperation and hope that would endure for generations to come. No one believed a human could lead, except the alien princess.